I've heard you say, and I've read that the universe appears as bubbles in my consciousness.
Yes.
And given that, sometimes I find when I'm in class, I think to myself, well, here I am, surrounded by myself, and there's me, talking to me, teaching me about myself.
Yes.
Given that, what is knowledge?
Knowledge is that which removes an ignorance in a particular mind. The ignorance has what... there is an appearance of duality here, right? Even after knowledge, the appearance of duality will not go away. But the appearance of duality will be seen as an appearance of duality. The underlying unity will be understood clearly, without any doubt. So you and I and all of us are one. And it's not crazy to talk about it like that, because I know I have attended classes in the Himalayas where the Swami starts the class by sitting, Mere Atma Swarup Sab, O all ye who are my very self. You have come in this way. Even mundane things. In the Himalayas, there are what is called Bhandara. Bhandara is a big occasion for monks, where monks are invited to feasts. Rich people give money and a nice meal is cooked and you invite monks. Now it depends. You can't invite all monks because there isn't enough food. So some of these Bhandaras are limited number. You have to have RSVP, or what do you call it? Yes. And they will go around. There is such and such a feast and such ashram on such and such date. Now, how many people from your ashram will go? How many monks will go? So instead of saying monks, they use very interesting language. Kitne murti? How many forms are going? The reality is one. How many forms are going to go? How many murtis are formed? How many forms shall you be? There's a funny story about Swami Brahmananda. I mentioned Swami Brahmananda had gone to Kashi, the hospital, with Holy Mother and so everybody would gather around him and meditate, and he would talk to them. It was such an exalted atmosphere. Nobody wanted to go anywhere. And so an invitation came, as it does, for a bhandara, for a feast in some other ashram. And nobody wanted to go. And the head of the ashram felt very discomfited, because if he doesn't make a good showing, he will lose face in the sadhu samaj, in the committee of monks. Nobody came from your ashram. What? You don't want to come? You don't like us, or what? So he went to Swami Brahmananda and said, Swami, everybody comes to you early in the morning, and tomorrow we have an invitation to a feast and nobody wants to go. They all want to sit in front of you. What do I do? And Swami Brahmananda said, don't worry. The next day they all came. All the monks, they bowed down to him. And he said, stand in a queue. They all stood in a queue with hands folded. Now he said, about turn. And they turned around. And now off with you, march off to the feast. And they all marched up to the feast. So they had a big turnout. It's an imagined duality. And the knowledge removes ignorance there. Before this imagination, that it's an imagined duality, it's a very real duality. You see the duality and it's very real. The non-duality seems to be theoretical. After the Advaitic teaching comes, it removes the ignorance in our mind, and then the appearance which continues is recognized as an appearance, not anymore as a real duality. And that removes the sorrow. You see, the sorrow comes from the reality, not from the appearance. The greatest of tragedies, the most evil of people, the most horrible things are acceptable where? Even enjoyable. Where? In fiction, in theater, in a movie, in Hollywood. Correct. Even the worst of things, you will enjoy it and you will give it an Oscar award. For a fraction of something, a person would be locked up if he actually tried to do it in the world. Would be hauled up before the International Court of Justice in The Hague or something. But in a movie, you give it Oscars. Why? Because the sting is taken out when it becomes art, it becomes enjoyable. Even horrible things, let alone enjoyable things. For an enlightened person, only from his point of view, that person's point of view, nothing is really horrible anymore. That does not mean he'll be cold and cruel and calculating when it comes to others. When others are suffering, he'll be all help, all comfort, all sympathy. From his own point of view, it's a play. That's why I say, if you claim enlightenment, you have no right to complain anymore. If you claim enlightenment, you have no right to complain anymore. One person came to Belur Mutt, and he was Australian. So he had this strong Australian accent. The Swami who was sitting in the inquiry, the Swami is especially short Swami, and this is especially big Australian. Australians are big, and this is especially big Australian. So this gentleman had to kneel down, and the Swami was sitting in the chair so that they could be on the same level. Even then the Swami couldn't understand what he was saying. He called me and said, "Look, you know English quite well. You talk to this person. What is he saying?" And it turned out that the gentleman was saying that he had visions of Christ, of Krishna, of Ramakrishna, and they're all entered into his body. I said, "Fine, that's wonderful. I mean, it's beyond my league." The only person who can help you is there. I pointed to the Ramakrishna temple. He's sitting there. He can help you. I mean, it's way beyond my league. But what's your problem? Let me ask you. That threw him. Problem? Well, he looked unhappy. Well, actually, I feel it's all coming to an end and I don't want to die. Oh, really? You don't want, you have experienced Christ consciousness and Krishna consciousness and Ramakrishna consciousness. You know that you are the infinite being and everything. And this particular body, you're afraid it'll die. That's your real big problem. And then he looked confused and he thought, maybe I gave him matter for thought, and he went away.